Beautiful. Okay, welcome to our class today. This is the first class in a four-part series. I really wanted to give something of value with this, and so I'm stretching it out over the course of 4 weeks so that you are able to take the material that we talk about and learn and then integrate it into your life. And that is, of course, how we make progress. It's that integration into our lives that makes the difference and allows us to have those shifts. So that's the reason why I'm kind of stretching this out. I've participated in a lot of teachings, and I've always found that the ones where I have a little bit of time to integrate the material are the ones that I was able to get the most from. And in this time, we're going to have some curriculum, some actual, knowledge and information. I am going to give you an assignment for you to think about and work on during the week. We'll have the opportunity to do a little coaching. So make sure, you bring whatever is your experience, whatever questions you have to this space from week to week. And we can, really make this time advantageous for you. I want to respect your time and give you something of a lot of value. So before we get started, let me just give you a little bit of background on me, because I think it's important for you to know who you're getting your information from and why how they got to where they are, and other kinds of things I think is important. So I'll just say this is kind of the brief version, but, I've been in your shoes, struggled with my thinking, certainly, also struggled with food and body for about 30 years, a little more actually. And so I'm very aware of, what unwanted challenges with food and a poor relationship with your body, how that affects us and our lives. And so through a really incredible healing, transformative process, I was able to start to understand my brain, our brains, right? Why we do what we do, how we form the pathways and the habits and all the things that we do, and then how we can form new pathways and shift out of old habits. And that was it was a journey for sure. And it was a beautiful journey. And I learned so much about, all kinds of various topics. I learned self-love. I learned how to think differently. I learned emotional resiliency, how to love myself. And it really opened up. I thought my whole problem was food and that struggle. And it really, I understood as I got into the journey and started to make progress, wow, this has actually nothing to do with food. It's about everything else. It's about the way I show up in the world and how I see myself. And that knowledge and then that transformation allowed me to, yes, develop a nourishing relationship with food. Yes, live in a body that is just right for me in an easy way. But it also opened my whole world up so that I could, have different relationships that served me, allowed me to, set boundaries and create the life that I now love living. So it went so far beyond just food and body. And that's what happens when you do the deeper work, when you do, get to the core of why you struggle with food and body challenges, as opposed to how do I get rid of this or how do I control myself? That's not the answer, right? The answer is what's underneath this that I need. And when you provide that, everything in your life changes. So as I was, transforming and living this life and just so much gratitude and so much joy of, breaking free essentially and being able to do this, I said, I have to share this. If I can help one woman have a new life, then great. That's what I need to do this. And so I began creating a program based on, all of the resources that I had used and how it applied to myself. And then I became a certified Nuaria method instructor, which the Nuaria method you'll learn a little bit more about today, but it's just really a brilliant system that helps us understand the power of our thoughts and how that relates to our emotions and how our emotions drive our behavior. And then it really sets, mythology to this understanding, Great. Okay. I know that if I can change my thinking, I can reach my goals, but how do I change my thinking? Like, what are the steps that I take? And I am super, super practical. Like, I am always like, I got to create an exercise for this. And how do I take it forward? How do I integrate it? And so the Noari method is a really beautiful method for doing that. And then I also realized after I started working with people and from my own background, how important our nervous system is in this process of change. And I started understanding, most of the people that I was working with had either, some trauma or accumulated stress, a lot of accumulated stress in their lives. And actually a recent article in the Psychology Today reported that 90% of Americans have experienced at least one traumatic event. So I started to realize, wow, this is a big deal and it's affecting almost everybody. And so, when trauma and accumulated stress has this big impact on our nervous system, we're essentially living in a state of survival. And when we're in a state of survival, it is so difficult to change. It is so difficult to take the steps and to be consistent because we're literally in overwhelm already as our starting point. So we're just barely, a lot of times getting through the day, taking care of what's in front of us, being reactionary. And then we try to, on top of that, okay, now I have to figure out how to change my thinking and eat right and, to deal with these emotions and heal these wounds. And it's like, if you don't have the regulated nervous system, those things are just send you into more overwhelm. So that's why I became certified in the biology of trauma, which is a really incredible understanding of what that stress has done to our bodies, how it's changed us and how it's changed our nervous system. So the work I do always starts and helps give that foundation of a healthy nervous system. And when that is present, it's like the foundation upon which everything else can be built. So it has been really powerful addition to my work to have the nervous system on board, to have, instead of being reactionary and acting in an automatic way, to be able to take conscious choice and to see what's going on and what's needed. And that has been just incredibly powerful. And I love bringing that into the world because, it's people who have been struggling for years and decades are now able, because they're working with a healthy, regulated nervous system, to do the things that they've been trying to do and just feeling stuck and spinning their wheels. So this nervous system piece that my work is, is a foundational piece of my work, has been so exciting, so worthwhile. That is a little bit about me, how I got to do this work, why I do this work, and kind of a little bit about what's different about me and my approach to making these kinds of changes. So I want to take a moment. The topic of this class, as you know, is how to think and feel like your free self. Because when you think and feel like your free self, you act like your free self and you become your free self. And I want to just take a moment to kind of look at how this plays into the bigger picture of successful, long-term, permanent weight loss and other goals. And I'll just mention, that this, like I had said before, with respect to my own journey, I'm talking about these things with respect to food and body, but they apply to everything. So if you're someone who doesn't really have that struggle, or even if you are someone, just know that it applies to everything, any kind of challenge or change that you're wanting to be to make. But today we're going to talk about it in the context of that nourishing relationship with food and being able to lose weight, live in a body that feels right, that feels good, that feels energized and healthy. So I want to take a moment then to talk to you about how this piece that we have going on today in this class and over the next 4 weeks, how does that apply? What does that look like in the bigger picture? And what I teach is, as I mentioned, that foundational nervous system piece. But after that, there's 5 main pillars of successful, effective weight loss. And they are, number 1, self-acceptance and compassion for yourself where you are right now today while you work towards making the changes that you want to. And this is so important. I really can't stress it enough. So often we think I have to, be mean to myself, or I have to beat myself up into my goals. If I'm accepting of myself, then that means I'll be complacent and I won't try. And that philosophy, that strategy doesn't work for anyone ever. So this is an important pillar, this first piece: acceptance and compassion for where you are today while you work towards your goals. The second piece is working with your brain to build habits that serve you and to shift out of those that don't. And notice I said work with your brain, because when we're talking about habits, we know a lot. We know how efficient our brains are and how patterns become habituated. Since we know that, we want to use that knowledge to our advantage and use the methodology that is the easiest way for our brains to accept change. Because our brains, it's like they like to resist change for various reasons. I won't go into all of that, but when we work with our brain instead of, fighting against it and trying to use willpower all the time, then we can get to where we want to go in a much easier way. The third pillar is aligning your thinking to the goals that you have. That's what this course is all about. So we're really taking this third pillar and we're taking it out of the bigger picture and looking at it on its own, because it is really powerful, and even by itself can bring about a lot of shifts. The fourth pillar is building emotional resiliency. What that is of course, learning to become aware of, allow, process your emotions in a way that doesn't involve reaching for something outside of you, and very often that's food. It's the easiest thing. We've been trained to do that essentially from the time we were babies. So having that emotional resiliency allows you to, set boundaries, heal relationships, create your best life, and relying on your own inner strength and letting your emotions guide you as opposed to rule you. And then the fifth piece is discovering what nutrition is best for your individual body. And that is something, and I really stress the individual part, because there is no cookie cutter approach that is going to work for everybody. And that's, I think, a lot of times where we run into trouble. We try to put our bodies in a box and say, body, this is what you're supposed to like. This is supposed to be how you function well. And then when our body doesn't, it makes it all the much harder to stick with things. Our bodies need a certain care and nourishment. And so when we work to kind of figure out what does that look like for Stephanie's body, or for Krista's body, or for Anna's body, what does that look like for her? And when you're working with your body, again, taking out the resistance and the fighting, then you can get to where you want to go so much easier. So those are the 5 pillars. And as I said, the nervous system is a really important foundational piece for that, because when you have that, reaching these pillars becomes possible. Everything takes energy. Even changing your thinking, it's creating new neural pathways, and it takes energy. Just showing up to this session takes energy. Everything takes energy. So your nervous system and even your body on a cellular level, if it has energy, then it's going to be so much easier to achieve these things. So as you can see, there's a lot of aspects, right, to developing that nourishing relationship with food and being able to lose weight, live in a body that is healthy and feels good. And we're going to be focusing on that third pillar that I mentioned, our thoughts. So any questions so far about the bigger picture or anything like that? Because I am so ready to get into the good stuff today, which is your thoughts. Okay, awesome. And I'll just say for those on the replay, write down your questions, send them to me. I will be answering those, and if also bringing them to the group as well, because I know that if one person is having a question, it's pretty likely that somebody else is also. So that will help me. It will help you to get your question answered. It'll help everybody else as well. Okay. So your thoughts have tremendous power. Tremendous power. Whatever you think literally creates your emotional state, and your emotional state drives your behavior. So we are always acting consistently with our underlying thinking, right? As you're thinking, you're doing. You may notice this principle if you kind of step back and look at it, or if you start to look for this going forward. A lot of times if you're having an experience with food, an unwanted eating experience, or you're just acting in a way that does not feel in alignment with who you really are, who you want to be, if you can in those moments really look at your thinking, step out of the judgment around, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, this is bad, whatever, and just kind of step back and say, okay, what is my thinking right now? You'll often see that you've got some thoughts that are driving, creating your emotions, and thereby driving your behavior. So, some examples are, you may have feelings of loneliness, fear, stress, worry, overwhelm. Okay, what are the thoughts that are contributing to that? I'll never find someone to be with. No one really loves me. I might lose my job. I can't believe you did that to me. The state of the world is a mess, right? I never finish projects. I'm not somebody who sees things through. I can't control myself with food. Losing weight is so hard. What difference does it make anyway? All of these kinds of thoughts create an emotional state for us. And very often that emotional state, leaves us wanting comfort, wanting soothing, wanting to regulate our nervous system, to calm us, to put us back in a place of, safety and security. That's why we're reaching for the food. So you can see why our thinking and our emotions are really, right, the place to focus, as opposed to how do I control myself in the moment. In the moment, the control, it doesn't work, right? You've been trying that. You're familiar with that strategy, and it fails everyone pretty much all the time. So we get to look instead at how to control myself. We get to look behind that and say, what contributed to me getting in this place in the first place? And, initially, how did I even end up here? Why am I going to the pantry? Why is the lid of the ice cream coming off instead of, oh no, the lid of the ice cream's coming off. What do I do now? That's not where we have power. We have power in the time before that. And that's where we can put our time and energy. And then it's effortless because we don't end up with our hand on the ice cream in the first place. And that is really powerful. So, a lot of times these thoughts, as I'm saying them, you may recognize a few, and a lot of them, we've thought them so many times. They're so pervasive. They're just so natural to us that we kind of don't even realize that they're there. And that's because, they've been there for so long. Our brains have become very efficient in thinking them, and they just, it's just automatic. So it's very interesting. Once we kind of turn that light of awareness on these, you really start to see, wow, I knew it was in there, but I wasn't really paying any attention to it. So and also I want to stress, it's not that any of your thoughts are bad or wrong, right? It's just they're not in alignment with who you really are and who you're becoming. That's all. They're just not the thoughts that allow you to act in a way that's consistent with your highest good. It's not, these are bad thoughts. I have to get rid of them. It's more of a, that's interesting, that these thoughts are coming up. Once you really understand the power of your thoughts, you realize that you don't have to be subject to them anymore. A lot of times we assume we don't have control over our thoughts. We think, well, that's just who I am. That those thoughts, they're just me. It's, I can't control my thinking, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm just minding my business. And there's the thought, so we don't feel like we have power. And so hopefully today I'm going to change that for you and help you see that with the right mythology and knowledge, you do have incredible control, all the control you need over your thoughts, and thereby to create your existence. Your whole life is created in this way. So I really want to give you an analogy. This helps me understand, and it helps me to explain it, kind of what's happening in your brain and some of the neuroscience behind what we're talking about today. So every time you think a thought, you literally build a neurological pathway for that thought. We could see it if we had the correct imaging. It's neurons fire together, right? And then they wire together. You've heard that expression. And the way I see that is kind of like, we think a thought, and it's kind of like a path, right? It's a pathway. And every time we think it, that pathway gets a little smoother, a little easier to go down, a little bit steeper. Every time, a little bit smoother, a little bit steeper. And then it's like we're standing up here with our roller skates on. And it is so easy to go down that smooth, steep path, right? It's so easy. It takes no effort whatsoever to go down and think the same thoughts. In fact, it's really hard to even stop once you get started. And that is that's a thought that you've thought many, many times, right? So if you want to think something different, you have to create a new pathway. And that carving that new pathway is when it's brand new and there's nothing there yet, it's kind of like carving a path through the jungle with a butter knife. It requires some effort, some time, some patience. It has to be built. So sometimes people will say, oh, I tried that. I tried changing my thoughts, but it just didn't work. And I get that, because if I'm my brain and I'm like, okay, here I am in this situation. Should I go down this steep path with my roller skates on, or should I take my butter knife and carve through the jungle? I mean, every time, right? Unless you're paying attention, unless you know how this works and understand, okay, it's going to take me a little bit of effort to not go down, turn that way and go this way. I have to have some consciousness to it. Then it would make sense that after 2 or 3 times, I would be frustrated that my thinking hasn't changed. But when you understand what's actually happening, you can say, okay, well, I ended up going down the old path, but I also, had awareness. I also kind of engaged with this new thought idea, and I built that pathway a little bit more. I went further into the jungle today. And pretty soon, what happens if you're patient and you're, following putting in some time and energy, is this old path, it gets less steep. It starts to grow grass because it's not being used as much. And your new path is getting easier and easier to follow every single time. And I think that is a really good analogy for what's happening from a scientific standpoint. And it also gives us, that sense, it gives us a little bit of patience with the process, because we know, like, okay, that didn't turn out exactly as I wanted, but I made some progress. I cleared some more weeds. I, got myself a little bit further on that path. And I would say, we also, just like I was mentioning with the habits, we know so much about the brain and how neurological pathways are built. And so when we have the right tools, and the mythology is kind of like taking a machete through the jungle as opposed to that butter knife. So that's what this first class is going to be all about. I want to give you an assignment, which is like your tools for building your new pathways, trying to put that machete in your hands so that you can go about creating your new pathways in a way that is much more efficient than, maybe just thinking, oh, I don't want to think that anymore. What can I think instead? And they're very simple. So let's look at how to do that. This is the integration piece that I was talking about. This is what I want you to take into your week and really focus on. So the first step, and we're going to continue this, we're going to talk about these things throughout the rest of the month. So don't worry about getting everything right now and figuring it all out. Just whatever you absorb today and whatever you take forward is perfect for where you are. And we're going to keep reinforcing everything. So step 1 is awareness, right? It's very simple. You can't change a thought you're not aware that you're having. And like I said earlier, awareness, I'm talking about a little bit greater awareness than just kind of the recognition. Like, yeah, I probably have some thinking in there or whatever it is, just really getting to know these thoughts, dragging them out into the light so we can really see them and start to work with them. Our brains produce between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. So you're thinking, how am I going to be aware of all those thoughts? Well, you don't need to be, right? We're only looking for those thoughts that are that create those emotions that then lead to the behavior that we want. So our emotions can help us as a guide as to what thinking should I be particularly paying attention to. How am I feeling? If I'm not feeling good, if I'm not feeling in a place of peace and calm, then there's some thinking that I can look at and potentially shift and change my state a little bit. So when I think about, how do I gather this awareness? Because I'm busy, I'm going through my day, I'm doing stuff, and it isn't always easy to even remember, right, that this is what I'm doing. We just kind of get caught up in our existence, right? And that makes sense. Of course we do. So we need to have some method to bring this into our day. And it can be a little bit different for each of you. But one thing I really like to suggest as a starting point is to set a timer on your phone or some other way, sticky, maybe tie it to mealtime or something else that you're already doing, and just take 3 breaks during the day, some paper, 5 to 10 minutes, sit down and actually kind of start to catalog what were the thoughts. And I want to see them written down. You'll be surprised at how much writing allows you access to the exact thoughts, instead of saying, oh, I was having bad thoughts, or I'm thinking negatively. What are the words that your brain is telling you? Because when we have those, when we've caught those by the tail, we can really start to evaluate them. Are these thoughts, how can I go about changing them? Because we're not just going to replace them. We're not just going to say, oh, it's okay. That doesn't work. And that's affirmations. And while affirmations can be beneficial, they're not really that good at helping us create new neurological pathways because they're not something that our brains can really believe. So we're going to talk about that in the second part. But what I want you to understand is how the greater knowledge or the greater understanding of what those thoughts are that we have, we can work with them more efficiently. So having 3 times during the day where you stop and ask yourself, try to get some of those thoughts down, will be really helpful. You could certainly do this throughout the day if thoughts are coming to you. I mean, that's kind of like the gold standard, right? If you just walked around all day with your paper, ooh, that's a good one for me to, but I'm trying to be realistic. We're living lives, right? So having those 3 times where you kind of pause and look at it and actually take the time to write it down is a really good way to get in touch with some of the thoughts that we might want to change. So at the end of the day, this is step 2 for this week. At the end of the day, take a look at these thoughts that you wrote down, and for as many as you have time for and energy for. You don't have to be perfect in this process. That is something that's kind of like an overarching principle here. If you think you have to be perfect in doing things, and that's what makes us quit again and again and again. So give yourself lots of grace and do the things, but just do them to the best that you can. Be consistent with it, not perfect, right? There is no perfect. We don't need to be perfect. And the thinking that we do need to be is actually what keeps us from making progress at all. So at the end of the day, with whatever time and energy you have, or first thing in the morning, if that's a better time for you, it would be for me. Take a look at the things that you wrote down, and without judgment. Okay, without judgment at all, because these thoughts are not bad. You're not bad. They've just been programmed. That's all. So take a look at those thoughts and then ask yourself, with however many you have time and energy for, how could I see this differently? How could I feel better about this? Those 2 questions. How could I see this differently? How could I feel better about it? And you don't have to go all the way to like Pollyanna, right? You don't have to be like, oh, everything's going to be just fine and I'm going to be able to, whatever. If you're truly not connecting with this new thought, it's not going to help you very much. So next week we'll talk more about how to structure your new thoughts, but for now, I just want you to play with the idea, see what comes up for you. Just one example to kind of help you to see how this could work. Maybe your thinking is, oh my God, I've got so much to do. I'm completely overwhelmed. There's just, so many things to take care of, and I don't know where I'm going to find the time and energy. Maybe that's your thinking. And if it is, you don't have to say, oh, everything gets done and I always find a way, because maybe your brain is like, okay, yeah, whatever, it's not believable. So maybe you could just kind of, start with a statement that acknowledges where you are. Like, it's true. I have a lot of things on my desk. I have a lot of things to take care of. But if I stay, calm and connected, I will be able to create, a plan for doing my best. And my best is good enough. And I will be able to give myself the grace to accept that, or, something along those lines, whatever resonates with you. And so play with it a little bit and see what kind of thoughts, oh yeah, that does make me feel better, that I can see it in this way. And again, this is a process, right? And this is a practice. This is not something that you're going to master, nor should you think you need to in the next 7 days. It's just, this is where we start, we start to play with these concepts and these ideas, and each of you they'll become your own in some way. We all have our own way of going about things, and it'll be interesting to the extent that people want to share. And I'll certainly share examples, and we'll start to see, oh, I'd like to try that on. That might work for me, or whatever it is. And we'll build this practice together and ideas for how it will look. But for this week, we're just going to start to gather some information and see how you can get more in touch with the thoughts that you want to think. What are the thoughts that we're going to take through these 4 weeks and really try to transform? That's kind of what we're after as the most important thing. And then in addition, we can start to ask the question, how can I see this differently? And that will be, a really wonderful place to start. And I really encourage you. And I say this because I have done this so many times. And that is, I will sign up for things in the past. I would, attend things like this, and I would be like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can see that. That feels, and I would write it down, and I would have every intention. And then I would think, oh, I know what my thoughts are. I don't need to stop 3 times a day. I don't need to write them down. And, just not give myself to the process in a real meaningful way. And the results that I got were, less than stellar. I got what I put into it. And so I just want to, encourage you. This is the part, the next 7 days, as you're taking this and integrating it into your life. That's where magic happens. Yeah, we need this knowledge piece, of course. It's step 1, right? But without step 2, the integration, the shifts aren't not going to happen. So I really want to encourage you, as someone who has done it both ways. Whenever I was willing to show up, I got results. So that's what I would encourage you to do here, is really, take the time, decide how it will work for you to stop and catalog some of these thoughts. We need access to them so that we can start to play with them a little bit. And let's think about them as whatever makes sense to you, whatever you like to think about them. Some people call them, the monkey mind. So we can pretend like we're catching monkeys or puppies, or something. Let's keep it light. We don't have to be like, oh, this thought is sabotaging me, and this is terrible thinking, and I'm a terrible person for having these thoughts, and I need to, get them out of here. And we're not going to fight them. We're going to, get to know them. We can even understand, most of our thoughts are here to serve us. We may think, wait a minute, no, I don't want these thoughts. These thoughts are bad. They're hurting me. But actually, all of the time, they're here for a reason. They're trying to protect us in some way. They're trying to provide us something to think we need. But we're not our thoughts. We're not our brain. right? We're the higher self behind all of that. And we get to decide, and we get to decide by creating our brain, restructuring our brain, creating the pathways that give us the life that we want. So it's incredible. I think that is in all of humanity, if we only had one piece of knowledge that we could give people, that's what I would want to give them, that understanding that we're not our brains, because I thought I was my brain for sure, 100%. I did not have any idea that I was the master of my thoughts in my brain. So it is powerful, powerful when we understand that. So let me pause here and see if there are any questions about the material or about the assignment, how you're going to go about it this week, anything at all. Makes sense? It's a lot. It's not complicated. It makes sense when we think about it and understand how it works. So awesome. Okay. Well, in the weeks to come, like I said, we're going to refine our tools, right? We're going to help make our machetes as big and sharp as possible so that we create our new pathways in a most efficient, speedy way that we can, so that we can start living from the place of our new thoughts. I would encourage you, I really want this to be valuable. So please feel free to email me as the week goes if you have any questions, or, even revelations. I love that when someone will email and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was thinking this thought, and here it is. Or if there's a question that you want me to answer in our next session, we can certainly do that as well. This is, I get so excited about sharing this and about, the shifts that can happen. It is definitely my mission in the world. So I appreciate that you are here and allowing me to do that, to share what is so important and so valuable to me. So with that, I just would say good luck this week, really, diving in and getting to know these thoughts. And like I said, I would love it if you could come up with some kind of imagery for what your thoughts are looking like, something fun, the monkeys or the puppies or whatever it is. Don't be afraid of those thoughts. We're gonna tame them and help them, be good puppies and fun monkeys. Wonderful. Okay. Well, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to let you get to writing about the things that you want to change about your thoughts, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to send out replay, so if you miss something or want to watch again, you'll have that available to you. And I'm just looking forward to next week to hear about what you want to create and whatever questions you might have, and then build our toolbox. Awesome. All right, ladies. Well, thank you for being with me today, spending time, and I will see you next week. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.